The human body, created by God, is a masterpiece of precision and strength, which requires fuel, called food, to keep functioning. To ensure that the body is properly fueled, God gave us the appetite, known as hunger. When food satisfies this desire, the body receives energy, maintaining the necessary balance to sustain life. But in light of this, why would someone choose to go hungry? Today, we are taught to eat 3 times a day, hearing that a hearty breakfast is the foundation of the day. Eat to stay strong, we learn from an early age. The balance between 3 full meals and physical activity is considered the key to a healthy life. So, what would motivate someone to skip meals? The modern world sees abstaining from food as a diet, usually used for weight loss or to improve health. But some do it for spiritual reasons, a practice referred to in the Bible as fasting. During fasting, a person refrains from food for a set time to achieve a spiritual purpose. In the Old Testament, a notable example is the Day of Atonement, when the Jews were commanded to fast. Leviticus 16:29 stipulates, "And this shall be a statute forever for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls, and do no work at all, whether a native of your own country or a stranger who dwells among you." This annual fast is called Yom Kippur, meaning Day of Atonement. God commanded his people to fast on this day to remember the solemn experience of their salvation. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest entered the Holy of Holies to offer the blood of an animal for the sins of the people. Leviticus 16:4 describes the rituals the priest was to follow. "He shall wash his body with water in the holy place, put on his garments, and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, making atonement." The high priest sacrificed a lamb for the forgiveness of sins, both his own and those of the people. Everyone fasted to identify with the high priest in this act of sacrifice, a powerful reminder that atonement was a solemn process, reinforcing the need for purification and forgiveness. Jesus said to his disciples, "When you fast," Matthew 6:16-18, "when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Jesus emphasized the importance of keeping fasting as a private discipline between the believer and God. He instructed his followers not to display their fasting in order to impress or gain admiration from those around them. Instead, he advised them to anoint their heads and wash their faces, suggesting an attitude of normalcy and cleanliness without outward signs of abstinence, so that only God would know of their secret devotion. By foregoing both pleasurable and necessary food, you draw God's attention. Fasting is temporarily abstaining from a bodily desire, such as food, to prioritize a spiritual need. Instead of nourishing yourself, you dedicate yourself to prayer and the study of the Word, seeking God's intervention. However, if the motivation to avoid food is solely to receive recognition from others for supposed spirituality, that approval will be your only reward. In the Bible, we find many examples of fasting as a powerful spiritual tool. Moses fasted for 40 days and 40 nights when he received the 10 Commandments, Exodus 34:28. Esther called for a 3-day fast for all the Jews in Susa, seeking the salvation of her people, Esther 4:16. King David fasted and prayed for mercy amidst tribulations, 2 Samuel 12:16. The prophet Daniel fasted seeking understanding and guidance, Daniel 9:3. And finally, Jesus fasted for 40 days in the desert, resisting Satan's temptations and demonstrating his total commitment to God's will, Matthew 4:1-2. Concerns about fasting. For many, the idea of going without food for a while can be intimidating, especially in a society where eating regularly is seen as normal and expected. People may worry about the pains of hunger or their ability to complete the fast, or they may feel tempted by food advertisements. Additionally, they fear being judged by friends or family who do not understand the spiritual significance of this practice. However, fasting is not about impressing others, and usually you don't need to disclose your decision to them. The true intention of fasting is to establish a sacred time between you and God, seeking Him with humility, prayer, and introspection. Therefore, follow Jesus' advice. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you openly. Matthew 6:17-18. Draw near to God in spirit and truth, and He will reward your devotion. Jesus reminded us not to publicly display our devotion to God. Instead, He encouraged a private commitment between each person and the Lord, especially when fasting. The practice of fasting can be done in secret, without the need to announce it to others. However, it can also be done publicly, such as in a church or group, to address a specific challenge. For example, Ezra fasted with about 4,000 people, and Esther called all Jews to fast to seek divine intervention. Annually in May, Christians are invited to participate in the National Day of Prayer and Fasting. What is fasting? Fasting is not the same as a diet or simply eliminating food for health reasons. There are different types of fasting, each with a specific spiritual purpose. The practice is a biblical discipline that can strengthen the spiritual conditioning of anyone and transform them into a true prayer warrior in service to God. Some may think that Christians don't need discipline, but faith is strengthened through spiritual exercises. Like soldiers of Christ, we should be proficient in various disciplines, and fasting is just one of them. Just as the Apostle Paul instructs Timothy to train yourself in godliness, 1 Timothy 4:7, we should approach fasting as part of this spiritual formation. Purpose of fasting. Jesus taught His disciples that praying for others, whether for the church or for people's salvation, encounters resistance from Satan. Fasting is a challenge, both spiritually and physically. In Matthew 17:21, He said, "But this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting," revealing that some spiritual battles require extra effort. This practice is like climbing a mountain, demanding but rewarding. Understand the purpose of your journey before embarking, knowing that the challenges may be great, but the rewards are immense. If this is your first fast, start slowly. God will honor your first step of faith, even if it seems small to others, because it will be significant to you. Attitude during fasting. Your posture during fasting is crucial. Just as a marriage proposal is accepted by a sincere heart rather than the grandeur of the gesture, fasting is valuable for the attitude and devotion it reflects. Therefore, don't worry so much about the duration or rigor of the fast. Focus on your relationship with God and allow Him to be the center of this special time of consecration. Make sure your relationship with God is in order. God knows all things and values the sincerity of prayers more than their duration. If you have never fasted before, start by skipping just one meal. In the Old Testament, the Jews were instructed to fast during Yom Kippur, one day a year, which began at sunset and ended at sunset the following day, according to the Jewish calendar. God taught the Jews to count their days in this way. And there was evening and there was morning the first day, Genesis 1:5. Therefore plan to start your fast at sunset or slightly before. This way you will skip the evening meal and, the next day, also breakfast and lunch. At the following sunset, Jews typically end the fast with a normal meal, fasting with a companion. Although private prayer and fasting are the foundation of all intercession, If you have never fasted before, it can be helpful to start this practice with a companion. If you are seeking a specific answer from God through prayer, invite someone to fast and pray with you, as there is strength in numbers. Jesus said in Matthew 18:18-19, "Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you that if two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven." These verses not only deal with prayer, but also the commitment made when agreeing with another person. Think of a trip you plan with someone. It becomes more memorable when you plan, dream, and share experiences together. Similarly, fasting and praying with another person tends to make the experience more meaningful and focused. Fasting with a companion offers additional benefits, allowing you to share doubts, questions, and fears. If fasting seems intimidating, the strength of another person can help you overcome these challenges by providing support and encouragement. You can always reach out to each other for advice and check in on each other's progress. This contact can be the motivation needed to continue. And don't forget to celebrate. When you climb a mountain alone, the victory is yours, but the celebration can be lonely. When you climb together, the celebration at the summit is shared, and everyone rejoices together. This makes the taste of victory much sweeter, as everyone can share the experience. Once the fast is completed, celebrate together. Simply being in each other's company can make success even more meaningful. Another advantage of fasting with a friend is that it creates accountability. You will be less tempted to break the fast or give in to a snack if you know your friend is aware of your purpose. Perhaps you have already experienced walking or running with a friend to stay healthy. If so, you know how having someone to support you can help you stay on track when things get tough. If you are naturally disciplined, you may not need this help. But otherwise, joining forces with someone can be valuable. Fasting with purpose. As you prepare to fast, carefully examine your heart to discover the reason why you want to fast. There are various reasons for fasting, and you may have a specific one in mind. When young David faced Goliath, he was determined to fight, even though other Israelite soldiers were afraid to confront the giant. David had a clear purpose, something that motivated him and guided his actions. So it's not just about fasting and praying, but fasting with a specific purpose in mind. List your reasons and put them on paper to see them clearly. By keeping a purpose only in mind, it can become blurry or vague. You might have a sense of the reason now, but taking the time to write it down will sharpen your focus and aid in planning. Don't approach fasting casually. Plan and prepare, or you might fail. Don't fast just to see how far you can go. Some people say, "I'll try it until I feel hungry," and give up at the first sign of discomfort. Firmly commit to fasting for a day, regardless of circumstances. This step is crucial for seeking God for His sake, committing to fast based on His grace and help. Types of fasting: absolute fast. This is a fast that completely eliminates food and water. Paul did this type of fast for 3 days after encountering Jesus on the road to Damascus and becoming blind. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither ate nor drank. Acts 9:9. This type of fast is not recommended for beginners, but for those who are deeply distressed or facing serious issues, such as addiction or protection against spiritual adversaries. Partial fast. A more common type of fast involves restricting certain foods or consuming a limited diet. This can be a great starting point for beginners, as it allows for the gradual development of spiritual resilience. Daniel fast. Based on the example of the prophet Daniel, Daniel 10:2-3, it consists of abstaining from rich foods like meats and wines, focusing on vegetables and water. In each case, the purpose is more important than the method. Plan carefully and align your intentions with God's will so that fasting is an act of sincere devotion. Normal fasting is when you avoid all solid foods and consume only liquids. In the Bible, it is depicted as a period when people abstained from food, but the consumption of liquids is usually not explicitly mentioned. For example, in the Gospel of Luke, we read that Jesus ate nothing during those days, and when they were ended, he was hungry. Luke 4:2. This passage highlights that he did not consume solid foods, but it does not specifically reference water. During fasting, many people avoid enjoyable beverages such as sodas or various juices, which aligns with the Old Testament description of afflicting oneself and fasting as mentioned in Isaiah 58:3. Partial fasting, often referred to as the Daniel fast, involves eliminating certain types of solid foods or liquids, but not all. In the book of Daniel, we find, "Please test your servants for 10 days, give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink." Daniel 1:12. During this fasting period, Daniel and his friends avoided all meats and other rich foods, consuming only vegetables and water. Furthermore, Daniel reflected this spirit of partial fasting later. "I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over." Daniel 10:3. During this fast, Daniel avoided pleasurable foods such as desserts, adopted a meatless diet, and abstained from wine or any other beverage that brought pleasure. Methodist leader John Wesley practiced a 10-day fast before major conferences, consuming only whole wheat bread and water. He fasted and prayed, seeking spiritual power to strengthen his ministries. His dedication to fasting and prayer had a significant impact, inspiring Methodist preachers to stand firm in their commitments and expanding the Methodist denomination as one of the largest in Protestantism, a reflection of Wesley's spiritual commitment. Rotation fasting is rare in Christian circles, but is used for medical purposes, such as identifying food allergies. In this method, the individual starts with a normal or absolute fast for 1 day and then, over the next 6 days, introduces only one new food group per day. This helps identify foods that may cause adverse reactions in the body. Choosing the right type of fast and preparing adequately are essential for a meaningful spiritual experience. Whether it's a total or partial fast, the practice should be guided by a clear purpose and a reverent attitude, allowing prayer and abstaining from food to lead to spiritual growth and drawing closer to God. When deciding which type of fast to undertake, it's essential to consider various specific factors for each individual. If it's your first fast, start with a 1-day Yom Kippur fast. If you need to fast for a longer period to deal with a serious or recurring issue, it might be better to fast 1 day a week for 3 weeks than to start with a 3-day fast. When embarking on this new journey, remember that your first fast should be normal, avoiding solid foods and consuming only liquids for a day. This helps your body gradually get used to the idea of fasting. Match the reason for fasting with the type of practice you will choose. For a more common request, a normal fast is sufficient. For a more serious issue, consider a stricter fast. To plan your fast effectively, make sure you are comfortable with the duration and type of fast chosen. When deciding what to eliminate, don't doubt yourself and don't feel guilty. Choose a fast that you can confidently accomplish. Additionally, consider your weekly schedule when deciding the ideal time to fast. Are there days when fasting would not be appropriate? Are there special events coming up, such as Christmas, Thanksgiving, or weddings, that would make fasting impractical? Avoid starting with an extended fast, as your body may react unexpectedly both physically and emotionally. A 1-day fast is easier to manage. Match your fasting purpose with the chosen practice. If you have a common request, a normal fast is sufficient. However, for dealing with more serious or persistent issues, consider a stricter fast. Regardless of the chosen fast, know that it is a leap of faith. God sees the heart and will reward determination. May God grant us the wisdom to understand the spiritual purposes and benefits of fasting, remembering that it is not just the abstention from food that draws us closer to Him, but the sincerity of our hearts and the pursuit of a deeper connection. Through prayer, may we fast not to be seen by others, but so that our hearts may be visible to God, who sees in secret and rewards openly. We thank the Lord for the strength and discipline that fasting provides us, teaching us to rely more on Him and less on ourselves. Amen. If this content was valuable to you, subscribe to not miss future videos. Together, we can enlighten more minds and expand our understanding. Thank you for being here, and may God bless you.